My name's Jack Rylan. I'm 36 years old, the kind of man who changes his own oil and still uses a landline because I never got around to canceling it. I work as a systems analyst, not exactly glamorous, but it pays the mortgage and keeps the fridge full. You'd never see me on the cover of Forbes, but you also wouldn't see me defaulting on a car loan. I've always liked steady things. My job, my tools, arranged just so in the garage. My wife, Rachel. We'd been married 12 years the last time I counted. Long enough that we could finish each other's sentences, or just not talk at all and still know exactly what the other person meant. We had 2 kids, Leah, who just turned 11 and has the kind of curiosity that makes Google feel underqualified, and Sam, who's 8 and has never met a bug he didn't want to bring inside. We lived in a beige 2-story in a neighborhood where the lawns were always just a little too green and the garbage cans all lined up like soldiers on Tuesdays. It was the kind of life that looked good on a postcard. And for a long time, I thought it was enough. But you know how people say a storm doesn't come without warning? That's not true. Sometimes the sky stays blue until the lightning hits. The first crack in our sky came quiet, her phone. Rachel used to leave it lying around like a forgotten cup of coffee. Then one day, it was always with her, tucked into a back pocket, clutched tight when she thought no one was looking. She'd turn the screen away from me when I walked into the room. Not dramatically, just enough. At first, I told myself it was work. Rachel was in digital marketing, the kind of job that bled into evenings and weekends. Deadlines, clients, algorithms. It made sense. Until she started wearing perfume again. Rachel hadn't worn perfume in years. Not because she didn't like it, but because Sam had a mild allergy as a baby, and the habit just fell off. But now there was this scent, something floral, something sharp. It lingered on her scarf, her side of the bed. She said she just missed feeling put together. Fair enough. But then came the late nights. We're doing a new campaign for a startup in Seattle, she'd say, shrugging on her blazer with one arm while texting with the other. Client calls her later because of the time zone. Reasonable. Everything had a reason. Still, she used to complain about long hours. Now, she seemed energized by them. Almost chipper. I noticed things. A new necklace that I hadn't seen before. She said it was a gift from her boss, part of some employee appreciation initiative. Her tone was casual, but her eyes flinched when she said it. I didn't say anything. Not then. See, I've never been one to jump to conclusions. Life has enough real problems without inventing new ones. I was raised to believe you fix what's broken, not toss it out. But something was shifting under the surface. Like our house had been built on a slow-moving fault line. You don't always feel the quake until the walls start cracking. We still did the normal things. Soccer games on Saturdays. Costco runs. Birthday parties at places that smelled like feet and cardboard pizza. But there was a distance, creeping in like fog. Soft but certain. She laughed less. Or maybe I just wasn't the reason anymore. And I started noticing the silence between us. The kind of silence that didn't come from comfort, but from retreat. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe I still don't. But a man knows when something's wrong, even if he doesn't know what to call it yet. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Not with a scream. Not with a slammed door. Just a quiet shift. A slow fade. Like the light in the hallway that buzzes before it dies. And still, back then, I thought we'd be fine. Thought maybe it was just a phase. Thought maybe all marriages have these shadows. I didn't know that sometimes the shadows are the real thing, and the light was just pretending. It was a Tuesday night when the truth finally quit hiding. Funny how it happens. You imagine if something like this ever came to light, it'd be dramatic, shouting, thrown dishes, maybe one of those movie moments where time slows down. But it wasn't like that at all. I was just looking for the spare keys. Rachel had taken Sam to swim practice, and I needed the keys to the shed. I opened the top drawer of the entryway table, the one we all swore we'd organize someday, and there it was. Her work phone. Left behind. Still charging. Rachel never forgot her work phone. That thing was practically glued to her hip. She'd once driven 20 minutes back to a restaurant when she realized she'd left it in the booth. But here it was. Alone. Lit up with a message. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. The screen said, "Still thinking about Sunday. You wore that red dress just to ruin me, didn't you?" Underneath was a name, Carter M. Carter Maddox. Her coworker. I'd met him once at her office Christmas party. Tall guy. Wore those European cut suits that always looked too tight in the shoulders. He laughed like he'd practiced it in the mirror. I remembered thinking back then, Rachel never used to go for slick. Guess that changed. I didn't go digging, not yet. Just locked the screen and sat down. The keys to the shed lay forgotten on the floor. That night, after the kids were asleep, I didn't bring it up. Not at first. I made tea, sat at the kitchen table while she scrolled on her personal phone, legs tucked under her like nothing was wrong. Like we were still us. "Hey, Ratch," I said quietly. She looked up, eyes soft and unguarded. "Yeah. Forgot your work phone today." She froze. Just for a beat. Not long, but long enough. "Oh, I didn't even notice," she said, too quickly. Then she sipped her tea like it could wash the lie from her lips. I nodded. Carter texted. Her hand stopped midair. The clink of the cup on the table was louder than it should have been. She didn't ask what he said, just swallowed hard. Okay. That was it. No panic, no denial, just a quiet confession wrapped in one word. "Are you sleeping with him?" I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. She didn't answer right away, just stared down into her tea like it might change the subject. When she did speak, her voice was thin, almost childlike. It wasn't supposed to happen. It felt different. Like I was alive again. Alive. That word stuck in my throat like a fishbone. "I didn't plan it," she added, her eyes glistening now. "But with him, I laugh. I feel like someone sees me. Not just the mom or the wife or the calendar keeper." I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just sat there, hands wrapped around my mug like I needed something to anchor me. She kept talking, saying all the things people say when they think pain is measured in syllables. It wasn't just about closeness, Jack. It was how he paid attention, like I mattered again. I didn't need the details. I already had the picture. You know what surprised me most? I didn't feel rage. Not the kind that breaks furniture. What I felt was colder. Heavier. Like a thick fog rolling in over something I used to know by heart. I stood up. Quiet. Deliberate. Rachel blinked at me. "Say something." I looked at her. Not through her. Not around her. Right at her. "No." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. Didn't scream. Didn't quote Bible verses or throw a speech about betrayal. I just left. Because some things don't need fireworks. Some things end in silence. And the silence was deafening. The next morning, I packed a bag and left before the sun had the chance to rise. Not because I didn't want to fight, but because I didn't need one. I didn't tell her where I was going. Just took the essentials, jeans, a couple shirts, my shaving kit, and the notebook where I'd been keeping half-finished ideas for a garden shed I never got around to building. I stayed at a motel on Route 9, the kind with loud plumbing and vending machines that only took quarters. It smelled like mildew and old air freshener, but it was quiet. And it was mine. By day 3, Rachel started calling. I didn't answer. Not yet. There was nothing left to explain. Some things lose their meaning once they're said out loud. On day 4, I went back to the house. Not to stay, just to get the rest of my things. I walked in like a tenant on move-out day, efficient, composed. She stood in the hallway, arms folded, wearing one of my old sweatshirts like it still meant something. "We need to talk," she said. "We will," I replied, not looking up. Just not now. I boxed up my tools, my books, and my father's watch. The kids were still at school, thank God. That part would come later. It always does. The conversation with them, that was the hardest part. I sat them down in the living room. Both of them curled into the couch cushions like they already knew. Leah, sharp as ever, watched me like she was grading a test. Sam fiddled with the sleeve of his hoodie. "Mom and I are going to be living in different houses for a while." I began. "Are you getting divorced?" Leah asked. "Straight shooter. Always has been." I nodded. "Yeah, we are." She blinked, looked down. Sam's lip trembled. He leaned into me. "Did we do something wrong?" That hit harder than anything Rachel ever said. "No, buddy. This isn't about you. This is about grown-up stuff that has nothing to do with what kind of kids you are, because you're both amazing." I didn't give them the ugly details. I wasn't going to turn their mother into a villain in their eyes. That wasn't my job. My job was to hold them steady while their world shifted. Then came the paperwork. Divorce, they say, is death by signature. They're not wrong. I got a lawyer. Mild-mannered guy named Callahan, the kind who wore tweed in the summer and drank decaf like it was penance. But he knew his way around a courtroom and didn't flinch when I laid it all out. Rachel tried to play it soft at first. Suggested we do this amicably, keep it clean for the kids. But when she realized I wasn't just going to roll over, her tone changed. She wanted the house. Full custody. Spousal support. The whole parade. I said no. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. Just, No. See, Rachel never understood the strength it takes to stay quiet. She mistook silence for surrender. Most people do. But I've been quiet my whole life. That's where I do my thinking. That's where I do my building. And now, I was building something new. I moved into a small rental just outside town. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, worn carpet, a leaky faucet in the kitchen. But it had a yard, and the back fence faced west. In the evenings, the sunset poured in like fire through the blinds. And I like that. I got into a rhythm. Early mornings, strong coffee, a little jog when my knees cooperated. On the weekends, I took the kids, board games, pancakes, movies on the couch. They laughed. It took time, but they laughed. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I heard something I hadn't in years. My own voice. Not the polite one I used at PDA meetings. Not the strained one I used when Rachel said she was working late for the 4th night that week. Not the tired one that said, "I'm fine," every time someone asked. No, this one was quieter, sure. But it was real. It didn't apologize for existing. Rachel called again last week. Left a voicemail. Said she hoped I was doing okay. I didn't call back. Not because I'm bitter. I'm not. But because there's nothing else she needs to know. I'm okay. And more importantly, I'm not done. 3 years. That's how long it's been since I walked out of that house with nothing but a duffel bag and a calm resolve. It doesn't sound like much when you say it out loud. But in life years? In miles walked, and nights spent staring at the ceiling wondering what the hell went wrong? It's a lifetime. The rental became a home, slowly. First came the bookshelves, then a new couch that didn't sag in the middle. I planted some geraniums in the backyard. Not because I liked gardening, but because it felt good to watch something grow. The kids adapted better than I did, truth be told. Leah is 14 now, smart as a whip and twice as sharp when she's being sarcastic. Sam's 11, still too kind for this world, still signs his text with a little, "Love you, Dad." I kept showing up, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Therapy helped. I fought it at first, thought I didn't need someone to tell me how I felt. But it turns out, having someone mirror your mess back to you without judgment, that's a rare kind of gift. I learned I wasn't broken, just bruised. There's a difference. I took my time with dating. Swiped through apps like a man looking for a decent sandwich in a gas station, skeptical, mostly disappointed. I met a few people. Nice enough. Polite. But I never got past that second date awkwardness. Too many people trying to fill space instead of just being in it. Then I met Claire. And no, I didn't see her and hear violins or doves or any of that fairy tale nonsense. She worked at the local library, ran the children's reading programs. I met her the old-fashioned way, at the circulation desk. Sam was checking out a stack of dinosaur books, and I was trying to carry them all without dropping one on my foot. She smiled, offered a reusable tote, said, "You look like you've done this before." I smiled back. I've had some practice. It wasn't lightning. It was a spark. Small. Real. The kind that stays lit. We started slow. Coffee on weekends. Walks around the lake. Dinner on a weeknight when the kids were at Rachel's. Claire didn't pry. She didn't try to fix me. She just showed up. Over and over. And that was enough. The first time I introduced her to the kids, I was nervous. Sweaty palms, pacing in the kitchen, second-guessing everything. But they liked her. Sam immediately tried to impress her with dinosaur trivia. Leah kept her distance, but I caught her smiling when Claire helped with the dishes without being asked. We kept building, one block at a time. She never tried to replace Rachel. Never tried to insert herself into memories she hadn't lived. She just made new ones with us. Movie nights. Pancake Sundays. Sitting in the backyard wrapped in blankets watching the stars because Sam insisted he saw a UFO once. And there was laughter again. God. I'd forgotten what that sounded like in a house. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone reach for your hand without expectation. To fall asleep with the windows open and someone breathing steady beside you. I'd forgotten that peace doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like Wednesday night meatloaf and a quiet laugh at the end of a long day. I wasn't whole, not entirely. Scars don't vanish, they just stop bleeding. But for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. And that was something. We got married on a cool October afternoon beneath an oak tree that had stood longer than either of us had been alive. Nothing fancy. No string quartet or ice sculptures. Just close friends, the kids, and a pastor who knew how to keep it under 10 minutes. Claire wore a navy dress that made her eyes look like twilight, and I wore the same charcoal suit I'd used for job interviews, court hearings, and now, finally, something good. Leah stood on Claire's side, tall and composed, pretending she wasn't tearing up. Sam fumbled the rings and dropped one in the grass. We spent 5 minutes laughing and crawling around looking for it. It was perfect. We didn't need a honeymoon in Paris. We had a long weekend in a lakeside cabin with more board games than cell service and a fridge full of leftovers. And for once, my heart didn't feel like it was bracing for impact. A few months later, we moved. Not far. Just 2 towns over. Enough to start fresh without burning it all down. The house was modest, white siding, creaky porch swing, garage that needed insulation. But it had a view of the hills and space enough for the kids to grow. And more importantly, it was ours. I left my old job, too. Took a leap and started my own thing, consulting for small businesses, helping them build systems that didn't collapse the minute someone went on vacation. I named it Oakstead Solutions, after that wedding tree. Had a nice ring to it. At first, it was just me, a laptop, and too much coffee. But it grew. Word got around. Now I've got 2 full-time employees, a part-time assistant, and clients from 3 states. I don't drive a Tesla or make 6 figures a quarter, but the bills are paid, the work is honest, and I sleep like a man with nothing left to prove. The ex? She faded, like a photo left on a windowsill. Rachel and I still talked, but only about school schedules and dentist appointments. Texts, mostly. Civil, hollow. She remarried eventually, some guy in sales with veneers and an oversized watch. Good for her. We'd exchange the kids in parking lots or at soccer games. A nod, maybe a have you been, but no warmth. No wait. She was a chapter I'd finished reading. There was a time I thought I'd never get free of her shadow. That every meal in a new kitchen would taste like old betrayal. That I'd carry that bitterness like a scarlet letter stitched into my shirt. But that wasn't the case. Turns out, healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes you just wake up, realize you haven't thought about them in weeks, and go back to your coffee. One afternoon, I watched Claire helping Sam with his science fair project in the garage. She had glue on her shirt, and he had glitter in his eyebrows, and they were both laughing like it was the most important thing in the world. I stood there in the doorway, hands in my pockets, just watching. No ache. No what-ifs. Just gratitude. I'd been broken, sure. But I didn't stay that way. And now? Now I was free. It was one of those storms that rattles the bones of the house, rain slashing sideways, thunder like distant cannon fire. The kind of night that makes you glad for solid walls, dry socks, and people who wait up for you. Claire had already gone to bed, curled under the quilt she'd sewn from old flannel shirts. The kids were grown now, Leah off in Chicago with a job in healthcare consulting, Sam doing undergrad in Arizona, chasing a physics degree in the desert sun. I was in the kitchen, nursing a cup of lukewarm decaf and listening to the wind howl through the trees. The porch light flickered once, twice. Then the doorbell rang. Now, when a doorbell rings after 10 p.m. in weather like that, it does something to you. Makes your spine straighten. Makes you think of every bad headline you've ever skimmed. I opened the door and froze. It was Rachel. Older, of course. We both were. The years had softened her edges, but not in a gentle way. Her once blonde hair was streaked with gray, pulled back in a sloppy bun. Her eyes, still the same sharp green, looked hollow. Tired. Like they hadn't known sleep in a while. She was soaked to the skin. Coat clinging to her like a second spine. One hand gripping the strap of a purse like it might fly away. The other curled into a fist at her side. Jack, she said. Just that. My name. Like it hurt her mouth to say it. I stepped aside. Come in. She crossed the threshold like a shadow slipping between doorways. I handed her a towel, still warm from the dryer. She barely touched it to her face before sitting down at the edge of the couch, arms wrapped around herself like scaffolding. The rain hammered the roof. Lightning lit the window pane behind her. She hadn't said anything yet. You okay? I asked finally. She looked up, and I saw it then, something I'd never seen in her before. Not during the divorce, not during those brittle handoffs in the Target parking lot, not even the day she told me she was marrying Carter Maddox. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. We need to talk, she said. Her voice was quieter now. No edge. Just air. I nodded once. Sat in the chair across from her. Not too close. Not too far. You're not here to fight, I said. So what are you here for? She hesitated. And that hesitation told me this wasn't about money or regrets or some delayed apology that had finally chewed through her conscience. This was bigger. Worse. I didn't know where else to go, she said. Carter's gone. Gone. She nodded. Looked down. Left me. Months ago. That wasn't it. Not all of it. Not enough to bring her to my doorstep in a thunderstorm like some ghost out of the past. And I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, rubbed her arms. The room buzzed with tension. There's something else, she said. I didn't come here just because of him. It's about Sam. I sat forward, slowly. My voice didn't rise, but every nerve in my body did. What about Sam? She didn't answer right away, but I could see it in her eyes. Something was wrong. Something that would change everything. The clock on the wall ticked louder than the storm outside. Rachel sat hunched on the edge of the couch, towel forgotten in her lap, her eyes locked somewhere between the carpet and regret. I'd seen her wear 1,000 expressions over the years, smug, sharp, impatient, but never like this. Never small. I waited. Patience comes easy when you've already bled out once. Finally, she spoke. I have breast cancer, she said, just above a whisper. Stage 4. It's spread. I nodded. I didn't offer the usual reflexive comfort. I'm sorry. You'll fight this. You're strong. Because Rachel wasn't here for sympathy. And she wasn't the type to beg the universe for a second chance. No, this wasn't about mortality. It was about consequence. I've known for about 8 months, she continued, voice flat. Tried everything. Chemo, trials, green tea, and prayers. Nothing's working. I'm sorry, I said, because anything else felt dishonest. But I knew better than to think that's why she'd shown up. And I was right. She looked up at me then, face pale and wet from more than just the rain. The hesitation was gone. Just raw resolve, the kind that comes when the future runs out of places to hide. Carter left 5 years ago, she said. I tried to keep the house, but I couldn't afford it. Lost the car. Burned through my savings. Moved into an apartment near the freeway. I haven't been happy in a long time, Jack. I know, I said, because I did. You can always feel the storm once it's passed through. I made mistakes. I thought I was chasing freedom, passion, whatever you want to call it. But I wasn't. I was running from the one man who actually loved me. I see that now. I saw it too late. She stopped, breathed in, and then she said it. I have a son, she said. His name is Ethan. I didn't move. The name hung in the air like smoke. He's 9, she continued. He was Carter's, or I thought he was. That's what I told him. That's what I told Ethan. She looked at me with eyes that weren't asking for forgiveness, just mercy. I found a letter, she said, tucked in one of Carter's old drawers. He wrote it after we split. He said he knew Ethan wasn't his, that he'd had a vasectomy before we ever met. My stomach turned, slow and cold. I did the math, Jack, she said, voice cracking. You and I. It was right before everything fell apart. One night, after your father's funeral. I was distant, yeah, but you remember. I remembered. The quiet night in the kitchen. The scotch. The way we fell into each other, not with heat, but with something like grief and muscle memory. Neither of us spoke about it after. He's yours, she said. Ethan is your son. The thunder cracked hard outside, like God had slammed a door. I just stared at her. You're telling me. I have a 9-year-old son I've never met, that I never knew existed. Rachel nodded slowly, trembling. And he doesn't know? She shook her head. He thinks Carter was his dad. I never told him otherwise. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think I did. She stopped herself, swallowed whatever was coming. But now it matters, I said quietly. She nodded again, silent. I leaned back, exhaled slow. My whole life had just shifted under me, and I hadn't even stood up. You kept him from me, I said, not bitter. Just stunned. All these years. I did, she whispered. And I know I don't deserve anything. But he does. He deserves to know who you are. The silence was thick, but not empty. It was full of the weight of what comes next. And I didn't know what came next. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. I didn't say anything for a long time after Rachel dropped that bomb. Not out of shock. I'd already gone numb. It was more like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a fog that used to be your life, trying to piece together how far the drop really is. I need proof, I said finally, voice low. Not a demand. Just a necessity. Rachel nodded like she expected that. She reached into her soaked purse, pulled out a thick, weathered envelope. Inside photos. Old ones. A toddler with dark hair and big eyes sitting in a laundry basket, a plastic spoon in his hand. Laughing. Another one, maybe age 5, holding up a crooked crayon drawing with MOM scrawled at the top. I recognized the smile. Not Rachel's. Mine. There was a letter, dated 4 years ago, from Carter. I read it slowly. His handwriting was messy, rushed. I know he's not mine. I got the procedure done before we ever met. Never told you. Didn't matter to me. I tried. I swear I did. But he looks too much like him. And I'm tired of pretending. There was a second envelope. A paternity test. Rachel had done it 6 weeks ago. Mouth swabs, the whole bit. Signed by a clinic in town. 99.998%. I looked up. She didn't speak. Just stared at the coffee table like it held the answer to something she'd lost a long time ago. I believed her. Not because of the science, but because of the way her voice broke when she said his name, and the way guilt had finally rooted itself in her bones. That weekend, I met him. His name was Ethan, and he was tall for his age, lanky like I was at 14. Wore a hoodie with sleeves chewed up at the ends and had this quiet, curious look in his eyes like he was trying to solve every room he walked into. He didn't know the full truth yet, just that I was an old friend of his mom's. We met at a park, neutral ground, a place where the air didn't carry the weight of anyone's past. "Hi," he said, offering a small wave. "Hey," I replied, smiling. "You like basketball?" He shrugged. "Sort of. I'm more into drawing." "Yeah?" I asked. "Me too. Used to sketch blueprints for fun when I was a kid." He lit up a little. "Really?" That spark, it hit me like a punch to the ribs. Because I knew it. That flicker of connection. That was me in there. The rest of the visit passed in a blur. We talked about movies, school, how he didn't like his math teacher because she smells like old pickles. I laughed. Couldn't help it. He had my sense of humor too. But later, after I dropped them off and sat alone in my car, the weight hit. Anger, guilt, confusion. All of it. Anger at Rachel, yes, for stealing those years, for deciding what I could and couldn't know. But more than that, I felt guilt. Guilt for not seeing it sooner. For not asking questions back when there was still time to shape this boy's early world. For missing birthdays, scraped knees, that first wobbly bike ride. I had a son. Not an idea. Not a theory. Not a legal twist in a messy old love story. A real, breathing, brilliant kid who looked at me like I was a stranger. And the worst part? He wasn't wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, turning the photos over in my hands, trying to reconcile the face I saw with the space in my life where he should have been. Claire found me there around 3 a.m., mug in hand, hair a mess. "You okay?" she asked gently. I nodded, though I didn't feel it. "I have a son," I whispered. "A whole son." She didn't say anything at first. Just sat beside me, put her hand on mine. And then quietly, "Then I guess we'd better go meet him." I found myself back at Rachel's apartment the next day. Same weathered brick complex near the freeway. Same peeling numbers on the door. Only now, the storm had passed, and everything looked too quiet, too still, like the calm before a second reckoning. She opened the door before I knocked. Guess she knew I'd come. Inside, the place was small. Clean, but with that weary look people get when they've stopped decorating and just started surviving. A half-dead plant on the windowsill. A blanket folded too neatly on the couch. Ethan's drawings taped up on the fridge like a patchwork of hope. She poured us coffee she didn't touch and sat across from me, hands folded in her lap like she was in court. I didn't ease into it. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at me, but didn't flinch. Maybe she'd already had this conversation 100 times with herself. "At first, I didn't know," she said. "I really believed he was Carter's. But after the vasectomy, I was scared," she said flatly. "Terrified, if you want the truth. You were gone, Jack. You had a new life. A new family. What was I supposed to do? Drop a baby at your door and ask for another chance?" "No," I said. "You were supposed to tell me the truth. You don't get to edit my life like that." She looked down, eyes glossy. "I know." The silence set heavy between us. "I missed his first steps," I said. "His first words. I missed 10 birthdays. 10. "I know," she repeated, and this time her voice cracked. "And I will never be able to undo that." "Then what do you want from me now?" I asked. "Pity? Forgiveness? A thank you for finally deciding I deserved to know I had a son?" "No," she said, meeting my eyes again. "None of that." "Then what?" She took a breath. Slow. Measured. "I want peace," she said. "Not for me. I stopped hoping for that a long time ago. But for Ethan. He's old enough to start asking questions. And he deserves answers. Real ones." I didn't say anything. She continued. "He's going to need someone. And it can't be me forever. I wanted him to know his father while there's still time. Before I'm a photo on the wall and a story someone else has to tell." She stood then, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a thin stack of papers, Ethan's drawings. Ones I hadn't seen. A rocket ship. A man with a beard and a child beside him, holding hands. Labeled in careful, crooked lettering. Me and Dad? She handed them to me like a peace offering. Or a penance. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I wouldn't. But I'm asking you. Please, don't let your anger keep you from him. He's good, Jack. So good. And he needs you. I looked down at the drawing. The question mark stabbed harder than any word she'd spoken. Do you love him? She asked quietly. The words lodged in my throat. Of course I did. In some strange, impossible way, I'd started loving him the second I saw his face. Like my heart had just recognized him. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I do. She exhaled. Shaky, relieved. Then be there, she said. That's all I'm asking. I stood up. Nodded once. I will. She didn't try to hug me. Didn't say goodbye. Just turned and sat back on the couch, staring out the window like maybe the next storm was already building somewhere behind the trees. I stepped out into the parking lot, sunlight filtering through the clouds. And for the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I went back the following week, not out of obligation, but to draw a line. Rachel answered the door in silence. Her face was drawn, tired, like someone waiting for the sentence they already knew was coming. The apartment felt even smaller than last time. Like the walls had pulled closer. Like it knew the end was near. I didn't sit. Just stood there, steady. This is the last time you and I have a personal conversation, I said. Calm. Final. She blinked but didn't interrupt. I'm going to be in Ethan's life. That much is decided. I've already started talking to a counselor about how to introduce it, gently, right? Carefully. I'll do it right for him. He's going to meet Claire. He'll come over. Spend weekends. Holidays. I'll give him the time we lost in whatever form I can. She nodded slowly. That's good. That's all I could hope for. I kept going. No breaks now. But you won't be part of it. Her head lifted at that. Her lips parted like she might protest, but nothing came. I'll co-parent when necessary. If there's a doctor's appointment or something legal, you'll get a text. Not a call. Not a visit. No shared meals, no nostalgia, no slow walk down memory lane. That chapter's over. Closed. Buried under too much wreckage to dig through. She swallowed. Looked away. I didn't stop. I'm doing this for Ethan. Not for you. Not for what we used to be. Because whatever that was, it died a long time ago. You made choices, Rachel. You carved this path with your own hands. I'm just walking it with my son now. The room went still. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. I walked to the door and held it open. She stood, slower this time. Her shoulders slumped with the weight of everything she'd come to say, and everything I wouldn't let her say again. She paused in the doorway, just under the frame. The sky outside was bright now, washed clean. The thunder had passed, the pavement still glistening, the air smelling like second chances. She turned to me one last time. Do you hate me? She asked. Her voice was soft, but not weak. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. Just truth. And I gave it to her. No, I said. I just finally see you clearly. She nodded. Just once. Then turned and walked down the steps, disappearing into the daylight like a character written out of a story. I shut the door behind her. Not slammed. Just closed. And just like that, it was done. No fire. No explosion. Just a man standing in the quiet, finally free. Behind me, I heard Claire's footsteps on the stairs. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just reached for my hand, and I gave it to her. Out the window, the world had started again. Birds in the trees. Light through the clouds. One life ending, another one just beginning. And I was ready for it. All of it. Viewers, this is the end of the story. We would be very grateful for your likes, comments, subscriptions, and sharing of our stories. See you next time.